The Consumer Price Index for the month of June, one way of showing us what inflation looks like, has hit just a few minutes ago, and it came in at a blistering 9.1%. Even with rate hikes over the last couple of months, inflation still not under control. What does it mean for sports cards and the sports card hobby? We will dig into this. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. We are back from the RV and we are home. And unfortunately, I wish that I had better news, a nicer video to come off of my RV trip, but that's just not going to be the case today. And actually, I thought that there was going to be some good news today, some hopeful news, and it turned out to not be the case. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, the big red button below. If you like what you hear, hit the like and also the notification bell so that you're notified every time that we have a new video, and they're pretty much daily. We will keep them coming. Also connect with me on IG at SportsCardDad, and I'm also on the Twitter, the SportsCardDad. For months and months leading up to the Fed actually deciding to raise rates, we have been talking about inflation being an issue, kind of that looming thing. But of course, when we're in the middle of kind of the euphoria, when things are going well, it's tough to really think about what's actually going on. And even though you see it with your eyes, you can see what's happening, it can be difficult to process. And this year has been an interesting one for macroeconomics, for the card market. There's a lot of things going on. Pricing really for a lot of cards has been coming down over the last 12 months. We had kind of the big boom. We've been kind of moving off of it. Yes, you'll see all-time highs here and there, but for the most part, a lot of even the high-end stuff has been moving downward as of late. And a lot of people think that that has to do with player performance, or that has to do with, hobby-related topics, which maybe some of that for sure. There's certain things that affect it, but the larger macroeconomic space is really the stuff that makes it all go. Going back to 2020, of course, pandemic happens. We have a lot of stimulus money flow in, and this is kind of what governments do. It's like when we have these sorts of crises, stimulus is always the way to go. It's always the quantitative easing, and we're going to buy bonds, and we're going to, kind of prop up the economy. And
I found the secret of eternal life. I looked into God's eyes, and you know what I saw? The juice weasel. Hey, folks, can you tell me what time it is? Time to juice!
Make everybody feel good. But here's the problem: is we've been doing that for 15 years, coming off of the subprime mortgage crisis back in 2008, 2009, and really we've kept Fed rates at all-time lows for a long time. Mortgage rates are what? A 30-year mortgage was as low as 2.5% on a 30-year fixed at one point. I don't know if we'll ever see that again, or it's going to be a good while. And I think that the one thing that I hope that globally there's a takeaway, this can be a learning lesson as to what can happen when you have too much of a propping up of economies. And it's not just in the United States. This happened globally as well, because you're seeing a lot of other countries doing the same things. They're having to reassess, they're having to raise rates, etc. And I hope that next time, there is stimulus put on the table, I hope that there is more pushback by the public. I think that all of our parents told us nothing in life is free. There's no such thing as free. There's no such thing as free money. It's just not the case. So this is another example of that again, where we got free money. And yes, a lot of it went to paying bills and helping and kind of getting people through. There were certain people that were affected, absolutely, that needed that money. But look, this was blanket stimulus. A lot of people got checks that didn't necessarily need checks, that didn't lose their job. They weren't really affected. And so now the bill has come to pay essentially in the form of inflation. And it's at 9.1%, which again, we were in the eights. I think the hope was that you get it kind of, we're at 8.5, 8.6. You're hoping to get down to 8.1, 8.2, show a little bit of hope there. Maybe even the sevens, heaven forbid. But no, we went the other way, 9.1%. A third of this report is shelter. So when you think about that, rents, that's what it makes me think of, is rents are rising. And this obviously has the biggest effect on people. If your rent is going up, that's the first bill that gets paid. You have to pay for shelter. And so when that starts moving up and it's out of control, people have to kind of move. They've got to move different places where there might be lower rents. I mean, that's really tough. There's not much you can do about that. What does it mean for sports cars in the sports card market? Well, I think it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about just people having an influx of cash to where it's like, oh, I'll throw money at this prospect or that prospect or whatever. I mean, right now, we haven't really been hit with any sort of unemployment issues. Unemployment still sits at 3.6%. So a lot of people are talking recession, but the next pin to drop, kind of that next thing, is really unemployment. Once you see unemployment starting to move up, that's when you know recession is a real thing. That's really the other half. That's the other piece of the pie that's missing here, is unemployment. And so if we start seeing a lot of layoffs, and I mean a lot, really seeing unemployment move up, that is really a sign of the struggle. And that's where we've got to everyone's just got to survive through that piece. And that's not going to just affect, lower income, middle income people. That's going to affect everybody. Doesn't matter if you're, blue collar, white collar workers, won't matter. When it comes down to it, it'll hit across the board. And if we are lucky enough to hold on to our jobs, assuming we do go into kind of a deep recession, as a lot of people are forecasting really in 2023. So 2022 kind of being we're raising the rates and we're doing that bit. And then 2023 is when the pain comes, is when I'm listening to the people talking, the talking heads. And a lot of people will say like, hey, people in the news, they don't know what they're talking about. I was listening to Bloomberg this morning. And again, not to say they're the end all be all. They're not. There's one source. I was listening to a panel kind of reacting with different things and that, but there'll be all sorts of reactions. Listen to all of them. And then, what was interesting too is I heard a lot of, I'm telling my clients, so these are the people working in the financial industry, to move into cash, definitely have some cash available. So even in an inflationary environment, people are being told to move into cash. And again, it's just to prep for the potential, for a big time recession. And so that's the thing with cards. What does that mean? Well, if people are moving into cash, they're not buying cards as much. And yes, are people still buying cards as they're interested in the hobby? Absolutely. The one kind of X factor, or one of the X factors, is that cards are an escape for a lot of people. So maybe they go to the movies less, spend less money on theme parks. They spend more money on cards because that's what they really enjoy. Some people are doing a lot more travel because with pre-pandemic couldn't really do it. Now they are doing it. All these factors are going to play into card prices and really card demand. And we've been talking a lot about, look, the National is coming up here. Will there be good deals? I'm not really sure if all of this is going to hit in time for this show. Will there be deals at the National? Of course, there's a zillion cards there, so there's bound to be a deal here or there, right? But I'm really thinking about next year's National, next year's Dallas shows. Next year is going to be a very interesting year for the card market, which again makes me reassess which cards. I put 5 cards that I was looking at, while I'm there at the National. And I'm not necessarily moving off that list of 5. I made a video on this a week or two ago. But I'm also just thinking like, man, some of the stuff has probably got room to move downward. And so am I in a huge hurry to get the stuff? Not really, because I feel like there's time. A lot of the stuff I'd picked out, there's some scarcity / rarity to it, but it's not ultra rare. These aren't Honus Wagners and PMG Jordans and stuff. Okay. This is stuff that will be available. They're on eBay every day. They're cool cards with some rarity, but these aren't, one of ones. I'll never see them again type things. But they're just cards that I want to have. It's, one of them being Jordan sticker and an 8.5 rookie, that 86 Flair sticker or BGS 8.5. That's not an uncommon card. Lucas Silver Prism PSA 10. There's about 2,100, 2,200 of those. It's not a super rare card. Would I like to have one? Sure. Can I wait? Yeah, I can. And so as people tighten up, they're going to get more picky. One thing too, grading, cost of grading moving downward. And so that is another kind of X factor to all of this, where people might say like, hey, look, I'm going to go back. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to really be choosy with my raw buys. I'm going to send those off for grading and hopefully kind of make some returns. It's obviously not going to be 2020 returns, 2021. We're going to grind. This is going to be grinding time. It's going to be being picky and figuring out what you really like. If you're a long-term collector, you're being a little bit more picky savvy/investor, being more picky on what you're buying. If it's a long-term hold, that money's going to be locked up. Again, this is cash that you might need, emergency fund, recession fund, right? So, it needs to be good. It needs to be something that you're like, man, this is an amazing card, and I like how it looks long term as far as price points. It just hits all the buttons. So this report today, it's a big deal, and a lot of people will say like, you're throwing cold water on a hot market. Go to the shows, see all the people at the shows. It's not a debate on whether or not there's interest in cards in the hobby. There's a lot of interest in it. It just boils down to do people have disposable income or not? And if we move into a recession, the one thing that is going to be more difficult for governments to do moving forward is supplying the stimulus. We move in a recession next year. We have already a stimulus problem. And what's going to happen? The government's going to say, okay, we're going to try to do this or that to help people, deal with this recession. But we've kind of already, the coffers are empty. Now we're on credit. We're paying interest on all of it. We're printing more. So we're just printing more money. So it's not helping us. We're going to have to go through some actual pain, it looks like. And I hope that it's not too much. The big question is how big is this? Is this a little recession? Is this a deep depression? Is this a multi-year deal where it's like unemployment is high and it's going to be a little brutal for a while? I think that as a whole, as a communities, countries globally, we have to think like, is this the way that we want it to go? Do we want our economy propped up this way, for years and years and then end up paying harder on the back end? I would much rather it just not be so, propped up in the beginning so that we don't get smashed when it comes down. I don't want to have like, a depression because we basically have propped it up for so long, and it's great for elections and everything else. It's always a kick the can down the road deal. That's always the story, but we're going to be left paying it. We're going to be left paying here we are. And now it's coming, I should say. And so while I love cards, love collectibles, I will still be buying them. You will still see the mail days and this and that. I will be more choosy. I will be more careful. There's a bigger picture, going on, financial picture. There's a lot of macro stuff that affects cards that has nothing to do with the 35-point night or the 5 touchdown passes in a game. So just keep that in mind. That's all fun stuff. And that's stuff that we saw from 2 years ago that was hitting. That was stuff like, oh, someone's had a big game. They get a pop. Yes. Will there be some of that? Absolutely. But we need to be realistic that it might not be. So if we're tying up cash and stuff that, we're not really sure why we're doing it, again, just more research, take your time. There's a zillion cards out there, whether you're buying ultra modern, modern, vintage, there's a lot of amazing stuff. Take your time and dig in and really figure it out because disposable income might be at a premium as we move forward over the next couple of years. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's report if you've been following it. Do you care? Do you not really care? And I know some of you are going to say, you're being a negative Nelly. All you do is talk about negative stuff. I just report it as I see it as it comes. All right. And the last few months have really been pretty brutal on the macroeconomic front, and I'm not going to ignore that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you all have an amazing day ahead. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.